I swear I don't see him go the other way. It's magic. Hi everybody, my name is Rosalie and welcome back to my channel, Back to Chubby. In last week's Do It With Me weight loss, I mentioned that I'm doing a version of something called calorie shifting or cycling and refeeding, and I asked if you guys were curious about what that was, and several people said they did want to know more about it. So in today's video I'm going to explain a little bit more about what I'm actually doing. I am not doing traditional calorie cycling slash shifting or refeeding. I'm basically doing a modified version of that for myself. Let me explain what those are first, and then I'll explain why I'm doing a modified version. First, let me explain what calorie shifting is. Traditionally, or commonly, calorie shifting changes day to day. Essentially, the theory is that your body needs a certain amount of calories every day to function, and I'll talk about that in a minute and how you figure out what those calories are. But the human body is remarkably adaptable, basically. So after a certain amount of time, your body will adjust to however many calories you're having, and it'll adjust to the calorie deficit that you've gotten. And some people might argue that there's no such thing as like starvation mode for your body. But essentially the theory with calorie shifting or changing up your diet regularly is that your body's going to adapt to that amount of calories. Your metabolism will slow down so it can make those calories last throughout the day, and you'll hit a plateau and you'll stop losing weight. So the theory with calorie shifting is if you don't use the same amount of calories every day, if you don't have a set amount that you stick to, your body can't get used to that amount of calories, and theoretically you'll avoid hitting a plateau because your body doesn't adapt. It has to change day by day. Commonly in calorie shifting, you figure out how many calories you need to have in a day, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then let's say you need 1,500 calories in a day. That's your goal. If you're calorie shifting, the practice is to take or add 300 calories from that and just sort of shift it around. So on Monday you might have 1,500 calories, on Tuesday you have 1,200, on Wednesday you have 1,800, on Thursday you go back to 1,200, and generally speaking you're within 300 calories of that goal, of that 1,500 calorie goal, but you don't stay the same and you don't stay stagnant on it. When we talk about refeeding, the theory is similar but a little bit different. Refeeding is essentially talked about two different ways. Some people think that it's just going back up to your maintenance calories, and then other people will essentially view it as a cheat day, but a very specific kind of cheat day, where in order to raise your calories specifically, you add in a bunch of carbs. I'm not doing that one. I'm doing the one where you go back up towards your maintenance calories, but I'm not going to get all the way there, I don't think. And again, essentially the theory is that if your body adjusts to a lower amount of calories and your metabolism slows down, you give it more calories or more carbs, if that's the way you want to do it, and it's like, oh hey, we have all these calories, I guess we can go ahead and rev up the metabolism and burn them, and then after your metabolism kicks back up, you drop back down again. So essentially what I'm doing is marrying those two concepts together, and instead of calorie shifting every day, I'm doing it week by week. For one thing, I don't really think that 1 week is enough time for your metabolism to completely adjust to a new calorie amount, and doing meal prepping, it's just easier to do the same amount of calories every day. As I've said before, I started at around 2,000 calories, worked slowly down to around 1,400 calories. I think 1,350 was the lowest I got, and now I'm back up to around 1,700 calories this week. If I'm honest, I'm kind of looking forward to going back down again. Not only because you drop weight faster, but because in order to get that many calories in. Not only is it more expensive, but it's more dense. Like, a lot of the foods are more calorie dense. And I don't know. I don't feel as good. I feel better when I eat lighter, I guess you could say. But I'm looking forward to the food that we have this week. They're more like hearty meals because it's getting colder. So anyway, the theory is that by moving my calories every week and not sticking to a specific amount, not only am I going to keep my body from adapting to a specific set amount of calories and then plateauing, but I'm going to keep revving my metabolism up by giving it the calories it needs, but then still dropping down lower again to keep losing weight. Is it guaranteed to work? Probably not. It won't work for everybody. So far it seems to be working okay for me and Josh, but if it stops working, then we'll do something different. I'm not married to it, partially because I've found in the past that if I beat myself up because I didn't stick to something, or if I get super mad at myself because I didn't see something all the way through, then I'll just be like, well, I can't do it anyway, and I give up. So if I just go into it with the expectation that I might need to change and allow myself to change before I even need to, I hope that that's going to keep me going. I also mentioned that I would explain real quick how to figure out the amount of calories you need in a day. There are calculators all over that you can find, but essentially what you're trying to find is your BMR, which is your base metabolic rate, which is essentially how many calories you need in a day just to sort of exist as you are. That's not to lose weight or gain weight, but just to keep this whole thing going, I need X amount of calories in a day. The other thing you want to figure out is your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure. And that's how many calories you actually burn in a day, in addition to just existing, like moving around, doing activities, how active you are, etc. You'll use an equation between those two to figure out how many calories you need to eat to gain or lose or maintain the weight that you're at now. And they are a good starting spot for most people, but they don't take into account every aspect of your daily life. For example, for me, I work from home now, and so even if I say that I have a sedentary lifestyle, when these calorie calculators think of a sedentary lifestyle, they still expect someone to probably at least like walk to their car, park, walk inside to their office or their job or whatever, walk back to their car, etc. Working from home takes away a lot of the things that you might take for granted. Let's say, for example, steps. I wear a Garmin VivoFit, and it counts my steps. So while I was working in a building where I just walking from my office to the bathroom and back was like 500 steps. So if you go to the bathroom 3 times a day, that's 1,500 steps. Whereas here at home, it's maybe 30 to 50 steps to go to the bathroom. So instead of spending 1,500 steps and the calories that would burn just going to the bathroom in a day, now I'm down to like 90 to 150 steps and the calories that burns. Not to mention the 1,000 to 2,000 steps it would take just walking from my car into the building and back every day, or walking to get a drink or something. My movement space is way more confined, and I have some mobility and balance issues, so I don't move very well or very fast. And as you probably know, sometimes the faster you move, the more calories you burn, and that's not necessarily true for everybody. Also, those calculators assume that you're a healthy-ish person, and I don't necessarily mean weight-wise, but I mean that you have a normal functioning body. If you have something like a metabolic disorder or a thyroid disorder or an endocrine disorder, which I know a lot of the women on here, like me, have PCOS, And a lot of women don't realize that that's also an endocrine disorder, and it changes the way your body metabolizes certain things, and it slows down your metabolism, and it changes the way your body breaks down food. So those calculators assume that you have a normally functioning metabolism. They don't take into account all these other factors that might change it. So the best thing to do is to actually talk to like a dietitian or a nutritionist or a doctor or something like that. But if you don't have insurance, or if you don't have the time or money or resources, then the calculators are a good place to start. There's also a lot of apps that will basically build the calculator in for you. Like if you use Spark People or MyFitnessPal or something like that, they'll ask you basically the same questions. Like how tall are you? How active are you? How much do you weigh? Your gender, things like that. But essentially it does the same thing. It figures up your BMR and your TDEE, and then it gives you an amount that you need to stick to per day if you want to just maintain the weight that you're at, and an amount that you could go down to if you want to lose weight. Anyway, I hope that explains things a little bit for you guys. I might have mentioned this before, I don't always have time to respond to your comments, but I do read every single one. So if you have any more questions about like calorie shifting or refeeding, then leave me a question down in the comments. There's also plenty of resources out there to find some more information on it if you are interested in something like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to the meal prep. It was a little bit hurried this time because, as I mentioned on Friday, I went out of town and we didn't come back till really late Sunday night. So I didn't even get a chance to do my grocery shopping or any of the meal prep until yesterday, which kind of messed us up there. Anyway, let's go ahead and cut to it now. I'm going to go ahead and crack all of my eggs into a bowl, and I will be scrambling them along with some milk and some salt and pepper. And while I'm whisking all of this up, Josh is actually browning some sausage on the stove for us, and then putting them into 2 9x9 baking sheets. And then I'll just go ahead and pour the eggs over them, and then these will be baked in the oven at 350 for about 25 minutes, and then I will pull them out, put some provolone cheese on the top, and then they'll go back in for another 10 or so minutes until a knife that's inserted in the middle comes out clean. That's when you know they're done. Then we will also be having a piece of toast, a tomato, and half of an avocado. For lunch, we're going to be making zucchini boats, so you just start by chopping off the end, cutting it in half, and then scooping out the middle, which is pretty easy, but you want to make sure that you leave about 1/4 of an inch of the zucchini actually there to hold your ingredients. So I'm going to fill them with about 1/4 cup of tomato sauce, and then put 1 serving of mozzarella cheese on them. It's just easier to use my hand. And then we are going to put some mushrooms on the top before we bake them. You can put pretty much any topping you want on them, just like pizza, but since we have meat for breakfast and dinner, we decided we wanted to keep these meatless. And then you'll bake them at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. Then when they're done, you might need to cut them apart just because of the cheese, but they should just pop right out and fit in the containers. And we'll be having 2 each, so basically 1 whole zucchini for lunch. For dinner, I'm going to be making beer rock filling, but at this point I was pretty much tired and lazy and just didn't care, so I did not film browning the meat or cutting an onion, but we did that. So you'll take your cabbage and then add it to a big stock pot, and I only added about half of my cabbage, and I'm going to add about half of my onions and about half of my meat. The cabbage is really thick, but once you start adding heat to it, it'll start to relax. So I'm going to mix this up carefully and then cook it on the stove covered for about 10 minutes or so until the cabbage sort of shrinks down and it cooks down and there's more room in the pot. Once there's more room, I'll go ahead and add a little bit more, cook it again for another 5 or 10 minutes till it cooks down some more again, and then basically just keep doing that until I have the whole thing full. And in all, this should hold it, I hope. Then we'll also have a baked potato with butter and plain Greek yogurt instead of sour cream. And then for snacks, we're having an apple and carrots and hummus, and I didn't film any of that because I was tired and lazy. So this is what a full day would look like. Okay, so that was it. It actually went surprisingly fast. I did have Josh help me this time, which is a big plus. I think the main thing that I ran into was not having enough space to cook things. Like for example, for the zucchini boats, we ended up needing like 3 different pans. Anyway, I hope you guys found this week's meal prep helpful. Let me know down in the comments what you think about calorie shifting or if it's something you might give a try. Also be sure to subscribe if you want to see more meal prepping next week, or if you want to follow along with me on my weight loss journey. Also, as always, I will put links down in the description box to all of the meal prep containers that I use every week, as well as links to my blog where you can find this week's meal plan, shopping list, and nutrition information, as well as any recipes that I used this week. Also, you guys can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and Pinterest now, so you can see some of my meal plan ideas that I find and stuff on there. The same username for all of them, just back to Chubby. So, Quincy, can I help you? Thank you guys very much, and I will see you on Friday when I weigh in. Bye. Say bye, Quincy.